So with all of the data and the facts surrounding children and the coronavirus, why is there this push for kids now to get vaccinated and be forced to wear masks in a number of schools? Dr. Nan Hayworth is with the Independent Women's Forum and a former New York Congresswoman. And I'm sure she knows a lot more about this than all of the YouTube fact checkers that have been suppressing everyone's accounts who talk about it out there. She joins us now to discuss. Dr. Hayworth, thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you. I have to ask, what is the point in putting these meaningless restrictions on kids? I mean, we had a lot of this data from the very, very beginning about how they are not these super spreaders. Schools are not super spreaders. So why are we back now at square one with masks and vaccines for kids?
Dana, I think fundamentally it is political. I hate to say that, but the Biden CDC is run by panic and politics. There are no data, and you have discussed it cogently and in great detail and very intelligently on your own program. There are no data to support burdening children with masks, particularly young children for whom masking, frankly, is also a social and psychological imposition. So this is actually a cruel act toward children. And there are no data on either disease among children, the COVID-related severe disease. Yes, some children's deaths have been attributed to COVID, as they are to influenza, seasonal flu every year. We don't want anyone to die of a virus, but these things are unfortunately, they are events that happen. There's no data to support that children are major sources of infection for vulnerable adults. So this is, and certainly in terms of vaccines, frankly, there's really no evidence that they are necessary for children, and the FDA has not even approved them for adults yet. So I understand why parents would be hesitant to even consider vaccines for their children, and there's no evidence that they're needed.
Yeah, we're talking to Dr. Nan Hayworth. I was looking at this report, that a study that came out of the UK that was released last week, and it said that even if kids were to transmit the virus, it would be at a much lower rate. And this was according to the lead researcher, the epidemiologist, Dr. Shamez Ladani, who led the study. They said that children aren't taking the virus home and then transferring it to the community. They have little, if any, capacity to even infect household members. And it's very, very a dramatic departure from what we're hearing from our own government here. And you would think, if we're following the science, why isn't everyone's science the same on this?
Right. No, it is political, Dana, because teachers' unions who are symbiotic with the Democrats, they own each other. Teachers' unions, the education government complex, is seeking billions of dollars of new funding. And they have a whole social justice agenda. The LA Teachers Union certainly was quite overt about it last summer. The New York City teachers unions have been obvious about it as well. So they are holding children hostage with burdens, with impositions, with doubts about whether or not they can make teachers sick. Basically, they can't. But they're doing this in order to justify their demands for political concessions and for resources. And it's a terrible, terrible thing to have to say. But I think that is the root cause, Dana, and all too many in the medical establishment have been co-opted by this. And I think somehow they think in some way they are advancing social justice by buying into this whole mentality, and it's just wrong.
With your medical background, Dr. Hayworth, I just wanted to ask you a final question. With kids particularly, the masking and the vaccinations, the masking, we went through this with my kids in school. Talk a little bit about what that does psychologically to kids as well, because just from what I'm hearing from my kids and their friends, they're a little hostile when they see celebrities and political leaders who are out and about maskless, and then now they're talking about having to go to school masked again, possibly, after they did everything that they were asked to do last academic year. Talk a little bit about what's this actually doing to kids?
Dana, I really feel that it is a social and psychological barrier, and there's certainly there seems to be evidence to support that in some grim statistics, as we know, emerging especially among pre-adolescent and adolescent children. There is a higher incidence of depression. There is a higher incidence, unfortunately, of suicide, and that's reaching into, at least I've seen one report, I think, a 10 or 11-year-old. These things, of course, happen under the best of circumstances, but it certainly seems as though we are psychologically burdening these kids. You need to see people's faces. You need to see their mouths, their lower faces. You need to have some sense that we are able to relate to each other, not to be behind masks and behind barriers. And not only that, but for the development of their immune systems, it's actually good for them to be exposed to, frankly, to germs, because that's how their immune systems develop a robust library of things that they can recognize later in life. So there's really every argument to oppose masking, and there's no good argument for masking. And I appreciate your calling it out and being a great advocate for common sense, because we really desperately need that to spread.